Welcome to TWIN BUSCH Germany, your competent specialist since 1997 in professional vehicle workshop equipment. With a corporate headquarters in Germany and 10 other branches in 7 countries, as well as over 40 sales partners worldwide, we are one of the leading manufacturers of vehicle lifts, wheel balancers, and tire changers. Hello, we will now show you how to properly set up your S3-18 in-ground scissor lift. Your scissor lift will be delivered on a pallet. Remove the packing straps to remove the individual packages. Attention! The tapes are under tension. Take out the 2 top packages and put them aside for now. The control unit is located in the remaining top package, which should be removed with the help of a second person. 15 liters of hydraulic oil are required for commissioning, which must be ordered separately as consumables. Now let's unpack the rest of the stage. The lift on top is usually the main side. You can also recognize the master side by the pre-assembled photo sensor of the synchronization protection. A reflector for the sensor is attached to the slave side. In order to place the master side, the scissor element must first be lifted and locked. For this we use a ratchet strap and a motor crane. On the other side, the strap is wrapped around the lane extension. Raise the upper deck until the latch engages with both teeth. Lower the lift so that the catches engage. When lifting, the scissors must be fixed. To do this, we run a ratchet strap around the middle of the entire lift section. Now the unit can be inserted in the center of the shaft prepared for it in the ground. Make sure you have the units in the correct orientation. The sensor and the reflector must face each other on the inner side. The second unit is lifted and placed like the first one. However, this must be unscrewed from the pallet before removal. Let's now turn to the crate with the control box. This can be opened using a screwdriver and pliers. Read the instructions carefully before proceeding with assembly. Now bring the control unit into position. Attention! With this model of the lift, the control box is usually placed on the right in the direction of travel of the car. However, as in our case, placement on the left is also possible by routing the hoses and cables past the slave side. Consider that the cable duct has to be shorter and the control box has to be closer to the lift. The 4 supplied 40mm rubber blocks and the heavy-duty anchors are located inside the control box. Next we turn to the 2 long cables inside the control box. We'll tie the cables together to make it easier to route them through the tunnels. Before further assembly, we will show you the cable and hose routing in the diagram. The 2 long cables on the control box are routed to the main side and connected to the 2 short limit switch cables. The long cable of the photo sensor is fed into the switch box. Now the connection of the compressed air hoses. The assistant side compressed air hose is connected to the T-piece on the main side. And the long hose on the T-piece is then routed through the tunnel into the switch box. Now we come to the hydraulic circuit. The hose marked in red on the assistant side is connected to the T-piece on the main side. Then the hoses marked green and red on the main side are fed into the switch box. Step 1. Route the 2 long cables through the channel into the slave side slot. Then, tie the slave side air hose and oil hose together with the cables.
These lines then go together over to the master side.
In the main side shaft we use a pry bar to route the wires out of the tunnel. Now connect the T-piece of the master side with the hydraulic hose of the slave side. Off parts are marked with red cable ties. When tightening the hose connections, be careful not to twist the hoses. Connect the T-piece from the master side to the compressed air hose from the slave side. The compressed air will later be used to unlock the platform locks. The cables are connected to the cables of the 2 limit switches using their numbers. Now loosen the hoses of the master side. The 3 hoses and the long sensor cable are now tied together and routed through the tunnel into the control box. Since we place the control box on the left in the direction of travel, the path again leads past the slave side. For easier work in the control box, the door is detached and set aside until the end of assembly. Now we can separate the hoses and the cable from each other and then let them individually into the switch box. Connect the cable from the sensor to the short cable in the switch box. Now we connect the compressed air hose to the compressed air connection in the control box. Then make the compressed air connection. Next, the lines are connected to the hydraulic unit. We start with the hydraulic hose marked in red that comes from the T-piece. Both hoses are connected to the hydraulic unit based on their color. For commissioning, the oil tank must be filled with 15 liters of hydraulic oil. We now fill the tank with about 12 liters of hydraulic oil. The remaining 3 liters will be refilled later when the platform has been raised completely. Now the lift can be connected and switched on. In the following we will show you how to bleed and level your twin bush hydraulic lift after assembly.
Note that there must not be a vehicle on the lift during this process.
Make sure that synchronization protection is disabled. The setting of the ball valve discussed here may also only be changed for the procedure described here for venting and leveling. Never change the setting of the ball valve while a vehicle is on the lift. After the lift has been set up, it is locked in the first locking position and the hydraulic system is filled with air. In regular operation, the hydraulic system consists of 2 oscillating circuits in which oil is pumped back and forth. Oil is pumped from the oil tank by the control unit to, or returns to, the lower chamber of the master cylinder. The oil in the upper chamber of the master cylinder is forced into the lower chamber of the slave cylinder, or flows back into the master cylinder. Before operation, the air, shown here in blue, must now be removed from the entire system. After this procedure, the lift will be leveled. To vent, first check that the ball valve is in the operating position. This is the case when the ball valve handle does not protrude from the case. Now press the up button to move the master cylinder out of the detent. Due to the air in the system, this may take up to a minute. If the platform does not move after 1 minute, stop the attempt and check the direction of rotation of the motor. Please note that the pump can be damaged if it is operated in the wrong direction of rotation for a long time. When the master side has moved out of the notch, lower it completely by pressing the down 1 and then down 2 buttons. The air escapes from the lower chamber of the master cylinder into the oil tank and thus leaves the system. Now place the ball valve in the leveling position by turning it outwards. The lever now protrudes from the housing. Now drive the assistant side out of the notch in the same way and put the side down. Press the up button until the side has moved out of the notch. Completely lower the slave platform with the buttons down 1 and down 2. Here, too, the air escapes from the piston into the oil tank. The following steps must be repeated 2 to 3 times. First, both sides are moved up one after the other. Set the ball valve to the operating position.
And press the button, up, to bring the master side up to a little over halfway.
The fact that the assistant side now moves with the ball valve in the operating position is quite normal.
Ultimately, both sides should move absolutely synchronously in the operating position. Then bring the ball valve back into the leveling position and also raise the slave side a little more than halfway with the up button. Then both sides are lowered again. To do this, however, set the ball valve back to the operating position and first completely drain the master side. Then bring the ball valve back into the leveling position and also completely lower the slave side. Now wait 10 minutes to allow the air and oil to separate. Then move both sides up and down, adjusting the ball valve after each step. Repeat this 2 to 3 times. After each round also wait the 10 minutes. The lift is properly bled when both sides move out of the ground together and quickly. Finally, return the ball valve to the service position and raise both platforms to a mid-height to level. The leveling begins when we put both platforms into the notches with the lock button. Then we try to lift the catch on the master side, that is the side with the limit switch. If the master platform is locked, the first step is already completed. In our case, however, the master platform is loose, and we first have to put the platform down in the notch. Set the ball valve to the leveling position. The valve now protrudes from the control box. Then, using the up button, raise the slave side so that it is slightly higher than the master side. Return the ball valve to the service position and press the lock button to lower the platforms back into the detents. The master platform should now be firmly snapped into place. If you skip this step, now continue with the next step. Bring the ball valve back into the leveling position. Now the slave side can also be placed in the catch with the lock button. Both catches are now firmly locked and the platform is level. Then return the ball valve to the service position to complete the leveling. You can now switch on the synchronization protection. The lift will now recognize during operation if the sides are no longer at the same height and will stop the process. The remaining 3 liters of hydraulic oil should now also be added to the tank. Finally, the door is hung again. Before anchoring to the floor, the lift must be precisely aligned. The 2 platforms should sit parallel to each other and be the same distance from the ground edges at the front and rear.
We will now show you how to anchor a lift to the ground using heavy-duty anchor bolts with the example of a 2-post lift. Be careful to drill the right size and depth, and the right concrete thickness. If the anchor bolts are not fixed correctly, or if the concrete does not conform to the technical requirements, this could affect the stability of the lift. The exact technical requirements can be found in the instruction manual. To fix the anchor bolts, you do not have to move the lift. Drill vertically and pay attention to the correct depth of the drill hole. Clean the drill holes carefully, by vacuuming for example. Drive in the heavy-duty anchor carefully and straight. Tighten the nuts using a torque wrench set to the required torque according to the manual.